Hi everyone and welcome back. I hope you're doing really wonderful. I'm so happy to be coming on making the very first video of 2022 for this YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that thumbs up below if you're excited for a 2022 full of exciting and integrative and just hopefully universal astrology content on this YouTube channel. If you're new and the video resonates, I so hope you will hit the subscribe button below and turn on those bell notifications so that you get notified when more videos come out. I hope you're all really enjoying this turn of the calendar new year. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the intuitive messages of January 2022, and then I'm going to talk just about the astrology of 2022 with some wonderful chart graphics on the screen. So yes, let's dive right in. So I've made an outline mainly of the planetary transits because there are some major changes in the heavens this month, but we will get to that when we get to it. Let's talk just intuitively about it. So firstly, 222. It's a triple two. If you are into numerology, that of course is a 6. So that suggests that starting this year we have a lot to focus on when it comes to repetition, jobs, daily output, daily habits, small habits that come together to make a bigger reality. That's going to be coming up right in the beginning of January. So I definitely encourage you to, especially during Capricorn season, okay? I encourage you to really get executive with your life. Like, really feel free to step into your power and to like bang that gavel and make a few decisions that you know are better for your long-term momentum. You have all the authority to do that during this time, especially before January 21st. And I do think there might be some hard calls for some people in that, but it might be easier than you actually think. Those blockages, those obstacles, those hiccups that a lot of us were facing in 2021, we're like, I just can't get it right. I just don't quite feel like I've like structured some of my life right. Something just feels kind of off. You can feel free to just write that now or to get good with what it represents in your life and to kind of, I don't know, instill a better function within some of the structures in your life. This is the best time of year, for example, to pay off a debt, to pay your taxes, to file paperwork, to make, I don't know, updates with your business, to anything. Capricorn rules over businesses, money, finance, currency, regulations, compliances, commitments. All of that is should be the main focus of most people during this time. So what can be really difficult during January, especially of 2022, given that it is a 6 year, which is like the Virgo, that the sixth sign of the zodiac is Virgo. So that's another level of like accounting, details, perfectionist streak, dotting I's, crossing T's. It's going to be a really kind of easy opportunity to actually get some stuff right in your life, to really make progress. We're building up closer and closer to all planets direct in February. And that's going to be when we really need to be in the implementation phase. But here's a wonderful, wonderful time for you to strategize and to get clear on how you want some of the structural aspects of your life to move forward. So if you're noticing, this is something we need to talk about in the intuitive messages. There's a bigger push towards modesty globally right now. You might have noticed in some headlines that certain media figures, certain entertainment industries are becoming a little bit more modest, almost like a Capricorn, okay? Ever since 2020, it actually pulled us back into a more modest place. So there's a little bit less debauchery. There's a little bit less individualism, actually, and also a little bit less egotism expressing so clearly. However, it's almost like some of that egotism is still there, but it's placed behind certain masks or placed behind certain veils and is not visible. I was actually talking to another astrologer friend of mine, a colleague, about how it's kind of a difficult place that we're in, where on one hand, before 2020, some of those sort of, for example, lavish displays of wealth, lavish displays of prosperity, and disconnection from the earth plane had really gotten out of control, and there was a need for it to be reined in. However, now we have a challenge to not veer too much to the other side, where, as my astrologer colleague was saying, where like a life can be robbed of its color. Okay, so here we have a challenge with Jupiter having just moved into Pisces to really express in a new kind of modest way the color of Earth and the color of our own, I suppose, individual experience. So it's a wonderful, wonderful time, if you have a surplus, for example, in your life, to find a very responsible way for it to tie into your expression colorfully, yet modestly. Modest may not be the perfect word, because I understand that for some people it evokes a feeling of like, I don't know, being controlled by another, or like, for some people to be modest is to like comply with some kind of like, I don't know, societal norm about how one expresses, but that's not really how I'm meaning it. I'm more so meaning it as in like really having responsibility and having a stake in the long-term momentum that you're setting, and also in the long-term relevance of the way you're expressing. So does the way you're expressing now seem myopic? Does it seem like it's a very temporary construct? Does it seem like it's not tied to your grander expression as a person? There might need to be an adjustment or an amendment to the way that you are contracted to that expression, if that's the case. Another intuitive message that I'm feeling for January and Capricorn season especially is about having enough space and comfort to really communicate with the universe and to communicate with the momentum that you're on. And this does kind of tie into the previous thing that we were talking about, where perhaps through modesty, or perhaps through even living a bit beneath your means, or really pulling back on expenses or any type of investment of yourself that it's not really actually good for your long term, you then have like surplus, and you have maybe some wiggle room to really make adjustments in your life that you needed to make. Again, it's where perhaps the lavish displays of wealth or the wasteful expenditure becomes a contract with your current experience, and it sets it in stone. So it's like it's Capricorn one way or another. Whether if you're living beneath your means and allowing a surplus in your life to generate, that's very Capricorn, and it gives you more freedom. It gives you more ability to move. Although also, if you're leveraging your life, if you're living way above your means, that also in a way is Capricornian, because it then contracts you and makes a very rigid experience. You know, I've got to work this many hours a month now. I've got to, make sure this business is going at top velocity. I've got to live a factory experience just to prop up this lever. Okay, so either way, it's very Capricorn, but I definitely recommend that you come to the sort of prior thing where you have a little bit more, perhaps through what you may think is a little bit less. But it's also interesting to me to see that so many people might really be cutting back and actually be having more. So for some people, I'm seeing more house with a smaller payment. I'm seeing also more nutrition in the body with a smaller food bill. I'm seeing a lot more on a lot less. So this deals to some degree with like a sort of global socioeconomic programming that is psychologically prominent at this time, where we have a chemical addiction perhaps to certain expenditures or to certain repetition or habits of how we spend or how we expect to receive on a loop or repetitiously. And that's something that we need to deconstruct during Capricorn season, so that it's staying and so that it's not just like a very temporary fix. Because these are really the things that create differences over the long run. So it might not make that huge of a difference for you to like decrease your mortgage by $200 a month, within the next like 2 months, but that might be a really big difference over like 15 years. It might not make that big of a difference for you to decrease your like food bill by $200, but like, again, it's these long-term changes that could be like the difference between a few years from now, whether or not you can step into purpose or not. Okay, so it really is in the small stuff. And I think that the first month of 2022 and the entire year of 2022, to an extent, will teach us a lot about the small stuff. So a lot of us might have come out of 2021 with like a really big, ideation about life. Like, I know what the big stuff is. I know what I want my life purpose to be. I know what my soul calling is, and it's huge. And we always learn about the equal and opposite reaction, right? Like, in order to create a foundation for those big things, it takes a lot of small, little, intricate detail work, a lot of stitching, a lot of perhaps nails and boards and stuff like that, structure building, architecture. It's wonderful to admire structures and architecture during Capricorn season, to really think about how it was built. Perhaps if you're watching YouTube a lot, maybe look at some videos of how certain structures have been built, how certain houses are built, and what actually creates that structure we see on the outside. Also, to see the inside of a situation, so to see inside the sausage factory. If you've wanted to make a company or have your own business, maybe watch some videos, not superficial videos, but really substantive videos about what that's like and what little details, stitching work, nails, boards go into creating that thing that you see on the outside, perhaps as a consumer. So what you see when you're driving around with your realtor, looking at houses, might not really be the best way to understand what you need in your long term. Perhaps it's better to understand how some of these houses are built, or the people who are building them, or the materials used. So 2022 asks us to be able to understand both, because then we have Jupiter, and Neptune moving into Pisces, which is the opposite of a 6, opposite of the Virgo. So we have to now kind of be a jack of all trades in a way. We've got to know the inside, we've got to know the outside, we've got to know the materials, we've got to know the view from the distance as well. So yeah, comprehensive results in January 2022, and the ability to make more comprehensive experiences in your life, and the ability to have more by working less or spending less. I really encourage you this month to really think about that, like the ability to have more via less, the ability to create more with less output, okay? And then also, yes, any training, any education, any new skills are wonderful to be being prepared to develop now, okay? Okay, everyone, let's move on. I'm just going to jot down the time stamp here so I don't forget. And let's talk just about the astrology in the month of January 2022. So I'll put the chart up on the screen for you all. So primarily, Jupiter has returned into Pisces. I will link below and in the top right-hand corner the part 1 Jupiter in Pisces video. I will make a part 2 for you all sometime later this month. Yes, so keep an eye out. Again, subscribe if you're interested in getting the information just about Jupiter's second foray into Pisces, as that will be coming out later this month. But as it relates to January, it's going to move pretty quick. So Jupiter is a fast-moving planet for being as large as it is. It will actually be through the first 7 degrees of Pisces by the end of the month. So there's going to be a really compelling progress made when it comes to dreams, when it comes to, these macro aspects of our lives. And that's, again, yes, where it's good to offset. It's good to have us focus on small details, to have a focus on the foundations of things in order to not have any types of collapses or any types of torrential storms or difficulties coming up as a result of that trans. But there will probably be more of a desire to integrate things in your life, so to merge things together, to have more of an artistic or more of a resonant desire plane in your life. So things that are particularly dull, repetitive, while I feel that those things can be very soothing to some people because of their simplicity at this point, here we are kind of getting pulled back the other way, where we want perhaps more colors and we want more beauty and more diversity in our experience. And I think that there will have to be more of that, so that we can get a better idea of who we actually are perhaps through our own comparative tendencies. So yeah, lots of changes when it comes to the way that people compare, or the way that people also generate formulas in their lives. And I feel that this can be good or bad depending on the way that people have already decided they want their lives to be. So the thing about Jupiter in Pisces is it scrambles things up. Again, this is a mutable Jupiter, so it disintegrates, dissolves, for the good sake. It makes things less solid. It makes things more passable. It makes things stand up under scrutiny. It's very hard to actually criticize, scrutinize, or single anything out. Okay, so that can be good or bad. Again, Pisces kind of transcends the concepts of good or bad. So we have a lot of things perhaps that are, again, undefinable. And undefinable perhaps being quite an advantage for many people. But I would definitely beware of trying to overly define things, needing a yes or no answer, needing some type of very scrutinizable or critical structure in your life, as it probably would not resonate or would not be relevant anyway. So it's okay if things are somewhat undefinable. Okay. But yes, we'll talk more about this in a specific video. Okay. Also, we have, of course, and the nodes. So already we have a big paradigm shift. I mean, January 18th to me has been the day where they really shift. So the entire month of January, we're already kind of like out of that conceptual framework. We're already kind of out of the battle that we were having with ideas, concepts, non-tangible philosophies, mantras. Things are getting more solid. Things are getting more real. Things are getting more material. And there is a solid paradigm shift happening, as there always is, with the nodes moving sign. It's definitely important to get everything right with like money, business, and things like that. North Node in Taurus. It can create also fanaticism in those territories. Like people can get very obsessed with their budgets, with their bank accounts, with their investments, with their assets. And there's a call to actually relax into the current structure that you have, or to relax into the sort of system that you've created in your life, so that you can actually experience prosperity. Maybe try to really structure specific times, like create a routine, use your planner to maybe understand, like, okay, this time of the day I'm going to focus on like finance, money, all that stuff. And that's all. It can't be being like thought about during the middle of the night. Like sometimes I see North Node in Taurus kind of being like, ooh, wow, I'm thinking in the middle of the night about like a business that I might start, or about like a way to get a raise, or about the way to climb like a certain corporate or hierarchical ladder. And that is how the North Node is. You know, it's very sometimes obsessive about making progress in the archetype of the sign that it's in. So again, Taurus is the archetype of money, assets, the money that you work for specifically. So this is more applicable to people who are seeking a certain salary or seeking a certain position that has a very specific outline of what it is. Again, this isn't really like intangible stuff. This is more like traditional old world stuff. Okay. And with the South Node having moved into Scorpio, we don't know it, but we're really transforming. And there's a deep transformative push underlining all of the experiences right now that is really seeking to transform our context to other people. Again, the 8th house Scorpio rules other people's money, other people's interests, other people, which then, of course, connects to things like reputation and networking and stuff like that. So there's a transformation happening for everybody starting now in that vicinity too. So it's important to kind of know that, and to certainly not let the North Node in Taurus, with what it evokes about like what things could be, or what I could have, or like what I want to have in my life, to not let that certainly push us into any disreputable or disreputable stuff. So definitely keep an eye out for anything that could be like disreputable, or anything that could be compromising when it comes to the interests of other people. Okay, that's a lot of what this next paradigm deals with. Okay, also we have Uranus going direct on January 18th. So I'll go ahead and shift the chart from the first part of the month into the ending part. And so Uranus going direct, we should have a lot of easing up of the, technological glitches that Mercury retrograde will bring in. It's good that we don't have Mercury and Uranus retrograding together. Yes, we will indeed be having Mercury retrogrades as well, January 14th. So I would say that time of January 14th to January 18th could be particularly issue-filled with Mercury and Uranus being retrograde at the same time in Aquarius and Taurus. It's evoking the Saturn-Uranus square once again, which is finally going to start relieving itself by the end of this month more so. And with the Mercury retrograde in Aquarius on January 14th, I feel that there could be too much reliance on innovation and automation, and certain innovative tendencies or certain just innovations could show their ugly side during that retrograde. Okay, so try to have a very streamlined schedule and a streamlined reliance on automation and technology. Try to not create too many situations where you're having to work overtime, where you're having to push through so hard, and to boost your reliance on technology or automation, because there could be a lot of frustrations there. And those of you who really made it happen in late December or early January and maybe got ahead, okay, so there's a little hint, maybe it's good to get ahead of things before January 14th so that you have an easier ride, because January 2022 really wants to actually make things easier, okay? Yes, with Uranus going direct, there will be quick passages. There will be also a leaving behind of the Saturn-Uranus square, as Saturn will start to move quickly, and this square will start to slowly separate. So that will be very relieving for many people. Also, we have Venus direct at the end of January, January 29th to be specific. So life will feel better. Life will start to get more beautiful. Also, for the entire month of January, knowing that Venus is retrograde in Capricorn, you can very easily overspend, go into debt, or mismanage certain funds, mismanage certain also interests or reputation-oriented things. So do make sure that you're thinking, yes, certainly about what you're spending. It's very good for many people to remove certain things from their schedule, to remove certain things from their budget, and to say no to certain expenditures during the entire month of January. And then by the end of January, you can actually see that you really got ahead. So keep that in mind as well. Mars will be transiting from Sagittarius to Capricorn and entering Capricorn on the 25th of January. And that is going to really help us out. Mars is very wonderful in Capricorn. It's one of the best placements. You can understand a lot about staying power, about what you want for the long term. And yes, by January 30th and 31st, and hitting onto February 1st, I think a lot of people will have got their you-know-what together and will have understood how to make a certain construct in their life really long-lasting, and also how to treat their body and their ethic and their integrity, dignity, things like that much better. There perhaps was something for some people a bit undignified about 2021 or about the way that they were pushing through. And by the end of January, so a little bit of a look into February. February for a lot of people is a big paradigm shift. We've been talking for the last 8 months about paradigm shifts in February 2022. Once they really feel this nodal shift, once they really get into all planets direct again, which I'll make a video about when the time comes, people have to perhaps reclaim their dignity, reclaim their integrity, reclaim what they've lost. And that reclaiming is very contingent on what we remove from our scenarios here in January, on the temperance and perhaps the prudence that we have here in January with all this Capricorn stuff, okay? It's very important to be a prudent and ethical manager of, for example, a business or a finance, or specifically, and when I say business or finance, let me make this a little bit more clear, especially if your business or your financial situation deals with other people's interests. So if you have a company that manages a lot of investments of other people, or if you have a business that is specifically responsible for a lot of other people's well-being, you have to be very prudent during this time. And I think that there might be a lot of crazy headlines or crazy news stories, for example, in February, about a lot of really big businesses or companies that perhaps did unethical things or like didn't manage the interests of their partners well or something like that, because we have a majorly self-serving, which is a survival instinct that came from 2020 and the threat to a lot of people's survival. But now here in 2022, we do have to see perhaps a giving or a sort of an understanding of like cost of doing businesses and what that means about the ethical management of certain things that have the stake or interest of other people invested into them, especially if you have some type of authority over something like that. So it's very important to get that stuff right here in January, and to live perhaps beneath our means a little bit more, and to let austerity be something that we can grow and have more through. So that's already going to be over in February. It's really one of the last opportunities for many people here during this time to get that stuff right, because February and then eventually March of 2022 really want to give us that much more, really want to have us experiencing a greater sense of dignity, a greater sense of, purpose. And that takes a certain amount of empty space in the experience, a certain amount of investment in health, a certain amount of investment in ethics and integrity, and basically also a lot of love for your daily routine, which takes time and it takes a certain level of financial stability. So the year cycle of 2021 taught us a lot about that. And then specifically January of 2022 should be like a crowning type of, we're in the 10th house, we're in the sign of Capricorn, we're about to go into Aquarius. That's like the pinnacle of Earth. So let's perhaps have a nice pinnacle and have a nice expression in that vicinity. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about here? Basically, let's see. It's important to understand that 2020 is re-evoking because of all this concentration in Capricorn. And we have Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Pluto there at the end of the month in Capricorn, and Mercury going retrograde right over those degrees where the triple Capricorn conjunction happened in 2020. So yes, there's a likelihood of more regulations, more things relating to health and, all of that stuff that we've been going through for such a long time that will be re-evoking, and we have to maybe deal with it slightly differently because there are other things. We have Saturn getting halfway through Aquarius. We have the sun moving into Aquarius. We have obviously a new moon in Aquarius. So there's going to be Jupiter in Pisces, direct Chiron, direct Uranus, different nodes. This is going to be a very different experience of that. And honestly, how do I feel? For a lot of people, they're just very done or very complete with something that they've had for too long in their lives. And I do feel a resentment in many people, and also a egotism and a loss of humbleness for some people. So those would certainly be good qualities to cultivate. Humility, okay? And not just humility because it sounds good and looks good on paper. I'm talking like real humility, as I think nature will be showing its velocity and its veracity, okay, by the end of January. So there could be natural disasters, there could be unnatural disasters, there could be things like that, but there always tend to be. It just depends on whether they're in front of people or whether people are aware of them. But the main thing is to really, I think, be cultivating new things. Okay, the sun, moon. So the new moon in at the end of January in Aquarius, connecting to Saturn. It wants a new structure. It wants to really create a new framework. It wants a very new way of doing things, and it wants that to be fixed and set into stone. And it doesn't want it to be the Capricorn thing. Aquarius and Capricorn do not get along well. And the sun and the moon are there. So we have a battle again between old and new world. And that's what the main thing that I talked about in the 2022 year ahead forecast, which I hope you guys will get the chance to rewatch or watch for the first time if you've not seen it yet. I will be linking it below and in the top right-hand corner of this video. But I talked about one of the main things of 2022 being this kind of like tug of war between old and new world. And that's very clear by the end of this month. So I would definitely recommend for any individuals to look at the old components of their life and look at the new ones and see which they prefer and see how they can perhaps have a stake in both. That's a hard recommendation to give because there are a lot of different ways that that can express, but it's very difficult to be completely 100% in either one, new world or old world at this time, because for some people, or how do I want to say, it's like neither of these new world or old world like very easily bow the knee to the other or are really willing to like surrender. So it's kind of like, just thinking mathematically what has to happen. It's kind of worrisome and definitely a very powerful period of time to have certain perhaps unconventional things in your life that are completely, certainly above board, yes, but that are perhaps not completely reliant on any super mainstream experience. If you're super tied to the mainstream to me, it's very evocative of like Game of Thrones vibes, and perhaps nobody can really escape from that at all. But to dialogue just a little bit more about this, not everybody has to know everything about you. It's important, I feel, for example, that the veil of privacy is a huge advantage for many people during this time, and there are going to be some negatives that come from that as well. But I suppose thinking philosophically, like, why is it that people want so much privacy in their lives? Why don't people feel comfortable being more open? There's going to be sort of a veil, I feel, for many people, and this is important to maintain for many because it's just not feeling super safe or super connecting to longevity to be very for or against anything or anyone right now, though there's certainly platform and certainly success, I think, for anybody who can really come out on one side or another. But the future of these sides or the future of these platforms is hard to really predict for. I can't really predict for anything, honestly. But what I can say is that however you can feel comfortable with the structures in your life and be contributing to structures that do build a sense of equity, again, whether that's financial or like spiritual or emotional, any type of like feeling of building equity in anything is quite substantially empowering during this time, especially, and I mean, the smaller the better. So we're not talking huge stuff because, again, huge stuff really has to claim either old world or new world at this point in time in order to be legitimate. But whatever you can do to just build your own personal value in your life and to work on some of these small stuff, some of these small things, some of these small daily habits, small daily procedures that, again, build a bigger life will be an area that I feel that no one can fail because you can always change it in the future, I feel. There is hope. There is a hope in this time of the future. And that does almost seem to like lean things more to new world than old world. But I do wonder if some of these new world things can exist without the old world constructs. It's very hard. And that's what the astrology is telling me, is that there's almost a hybrid dependency between new and old world, and they both kind of depend on each other. So it's kind of hard to say when they seem in conflict, like what that really means. It's kind of like a mind, it's kind of like where do things go from here, So to not really have to know the answers is really the best way out here, and to just be working on things that are truly healthy and truly contributive to your greater knowing as a person can only be good. So anyway, everyone, we've really talked in depth about some of these things. I hope you've enjoyed this January comprehensive astrology video. This channel is on Patreon. If you want to get weekly teach-outs, I do bonus teach-outs every Saturday. And I talk about the week ahead, and I just talk about some general things. They're only available over there on Patreon, so definitely come sign up if you haven't yet. I would so love to have you over there, and the new year is always the best time to get a Patreon subscription. So I will link that below and in the center of your screen now. And definitely check out the 2022 year ahead forecast video. And yes, all of the 12 general readings are up on Patreon as well. Early, ad-free with extended counterparts, so it's just such a great value. And have a wonderful January. Much love. Bye.